Hey guys, today I have Dr. Paul here, and we are talking about hydrogen water for the relief of chronic pain. Is it hype or is it hope? And we are talking about how to elongate your fast with using hydrogen water instead of regular water. So, Dr. Paul, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's an honor.
So tell me a little bit. It's funny because right before I had you come on, the listeners didn't hear this part, but I was like, oh my gosh. So I guess what? I just got a hydrogen water
Yeah,
machine.
yeah.
And he was like, well, we need to talk more about that because the one you have may not be a good one. So first, for listeners who have never heard of hydrogen water,
Sure.
talk a little bit about what exactly it is and like my title said, is it hope or is it hype?
So that's great. Thank you for teeing that up. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I was the first person to really develop a product category and to begin lecturing about it way back in 2009. And prior to that, I was in the alkaline water machine world, which we came to understand, or I came to understand, that the pH didn't matter, the pH of the water. It's just whether or not you have hydrogen gas, H2 to be specific, in the water. Now, fast forward today, and we have almost 1,400 studies now on hydrogen affecting over 225 disease models. And so it's very solid science now. And what it comes down to is reducing oxidative stress and chronic inflammation. So inflammation is where pain typically comes from. And so the fact that hydrogen gas can reduce inflammation, you absolutely will reduce pain in the body. We have studies on rheumatoid arthritis. We have studies on just pain in general. And so definitely hydrogen can reduce pain.
Mm. So when you're talking about these machines
Mhm.
and how it's adding hydrogen to the water, explain how one machine might not be doing the right thing, but another one can. Explain that.
Yes. So you have electrolysis, which has been around since 1800. Dr. Anthony Carlisle in London discovered water electrolysis. So, in the process of electrolysis, you have electrodes that are negative and positively charged. And off the negatively charged electrode, you would have hydrogen gas. Off the positively charged electrode, you would have oxygen. And so these units, these electrolysis machines, can produce hydrogen. This is why Dr. Anthony Carlisle did that in 1800, is he was harvesting hydrogen gas. The inherent weakness of alkaline acid systems that use traditional electrolysis is the minerals in the water, the naturally occurring minerals in water will bond to the negatively charged electrode. And when that happens, you no longer have the ability to dissolve hydrogen gas into the water. So when these devices are brand new, these electrolysis devices that make alkaline and acid water, when they're brand new, they can dissolve a great deal of hydrogen. But within a few weeks, they're not going to dissolve hydrogen anymore. And so you've lost the benefit of why you bought the device. In devices like what we have, where we have proprietary hydrogen patented devices, we don't use traditional electrolysis. We use what's called a proton exchange membrane, and that separates or creates hydrogen gas from hydrogen ions. And when two H pluses combine, they can create H2 when you add two electrons. So what we're doing is taking H plus, adding an electron to each, and then hydrogen neutral is not stable by itself. So it's going to combine and make H2 gas. So in our devices, We then take that hydrogen gas and we dissolve it into a stream of water that was never even in the chamber touching electrodes in the first place. So we have really the only pure hydrogen water system in the world, and the only one that is IHSA certified. So that's International Hydrogen Standards Association from Japan, that we met the criteria, and we're the only machine company in the world that met that criteria. So this is the fundamental difference with traditional electrolysis and a proton exchange membrane. Proton exchange membrane does not need conductivity or minerals in the water to function properly. Standard electrolysis requires conductivity and has to have minerals, but those very minerals that are required to allow the system to function will bond to the electrode, the cathode particularly, and then it will disable it from working correctly. So hopefully that isn't too techy, but that's the difference, is you either have hydrogen or you don't.
So I know that your wife had been suffering
Mhm.
from some chronic illnesses,
Yes.
and some of them were debilitating,
Yeah.
and they just weren't being helped with traditional medicine.
Yeah.
And a friend of yours offered kind of a new filtered water. So
Mhm.
talk about what was her health issues and how that whole story came about, where you were like, oh my gosh, this could actually help somebody with chronic
Right.
illnesses.
Right. Well, thank you for that. Yes, that really, this whole thing is about my queen, the love of my life. We've been married 30 years now. But when we were married 10 years, she we would lose her a week out of every month when she was on her cycle, because she would be doubled over in pain. So not only was she anemic, she had thyroid issues, gynecological issues, what's called adenomyosis. And so she was just not in a good way at that time. And we had been married 10 years. And it was just, I was like, what am I going to do? I love her and I even like her, right? Like I like her a lot and I want her to be around. And so through a process of doing research, and everyone knew I was doing research and trying to figure out what I could do to help my wife, people were going, oh, this might help her, this might help her. And so a lot of people were sharing stuff with me to try and help her. And I ended up finding that water that had a negative ORP could help her. And the actual company's product that I initially, uh, someone gave me water from, is no longer in business. They were out of Japan and they're no longer in business. But I was able to see that it had an effect on her. And then I was able to use a different machine, which at that time was an alkaline acid machine, because hydrogen machines hadn't been created yet. I hadn't made it. But these alkaline acid machines that were creating the hydrogen gas, I was able to use with her. And the particular company that I used had a patented process that reversed the polarity of the electrodes. And so, unbeknownst to me at the time, but because they had this technology, it kept the minerals from ever bonding on the electrodes. And so you were able to continue having hydrogen, but they were the only company doing that. But they didn't even know that they were doing that. And it was me discovering it later, because I became a part of that company as a partner. And so in 2008 and 2009, I finally understood 100% it's hydrogen gas and the negative RP that's having the effect. And I want to make a device that just doesn't change pH, but does put the hydrogen in the water. And so that's where I started doing that in 2009, 10, and 11, developed the first Echo machine, Echo branded machine, which focused on hydrogen. And that the rest is history now. But we've evolved the technology significantly even since that time in 2011. But here, fast forward, here we are today. And of course, a lot of people understand about hydrogen, but because they're just barely learning the benefits of hydrogen, they don't know what to look for these scam products that are out there that aren't really producing hydrogen.
Okay, so we all know that hydrogen is already in the structure of water, right? Like it's the H that's in the H2O, right? But water is a liquid,
Mhm.
which means we don't have access to hydrogen in its gaseous form.
Correct.
So I just want you to kind of, as easy as you can, explain, because it is complicated. So
Right.
just try to dumb it down a little bit and
Yep.
explain like what is dissolved hydrogen,
Yep.
and if hydrogen is already in the structure of water, right? Like we know it, that's why it's called H2O, is because the H is hydrogen. So
Mhm.
just explain, how do you create dissolved hydrogen and what is that exactly?
So dissolved hydrogen is like any gas. Like you have a soda, you have carbon dioxide dissolved in that gas, in that liquid. So you can dissolve most any gas into a liquid by forcing that gas into the liquid. And so that's called dissolved. And if it's dissolved, that that means it's not readily coming out. And in other words, if you see bubbles, that's not dissolved. You don't see the bubbles when it is dissolved. So H2O, when you combine hydrogen gas and oxygen gas, it forms a liquid. So you no longer have hydrogen and oxygen, you have water. It's a totally different substance. Of course, water is different than hydrogen and oxygen gas, but that is what we would call the constituent elements, or what makes up water is hydrogen and oxygen gas. Once they have formed and created a liquid, you no longer have hydrogen and oxygen as gases. And so they wouldn't be able to do what hydrogen and oxygen gas do. Like you can't breathe water unless you're a fish. You have to be able to separate the oxygen out, right? And separate those water molecules into gas form again. So we are not able to do that. Clearly, we drown as people because we can't access the gas in water, the oxygen gas. So what we're talking about when we say hydrogen water, we're talking about having water, H2O, and then adding H2 gas into that liquid, and we dissolve it so that it is in there and not just going to come out real quick. Because if it comes out real quick, then there's no benefit to the body. We need the hydrogen gas to stay in the water, and we want to ideally get it down into the colon or down into the large intestine so that we can change the gut terrain, the biome of the gut, and basically rehab or fix guts that are dysfunctioning. That's really my primary reason for wanting hydrogen in the body, to fix the gut, and then that'll fix a lot of things in the body. But that's what we're doing. And you can dissolve hydrogen gas by, having a tube in water and putting gas into it and pressurizing a chamber. You can put it in a bottle and create hydrogen gas in that and pressurize that. Or in our case, in our machines, we have a proprietary hydrogen module, which creates hydrogen gas and pushes that hydrogen gas out a port. And then we combine it with another stream of pure water that was never in the chamber. And then that water goes through a dissolving chamber to hit saturation. And saturation is roughly 1.6 to 1.8 parts per million of hydrogen gas, is about all you can dissolve into water at 1 atmosphere. So it comes down to pressure, it comes down to temperature, it comes down to a lot of things. But that's how our system works: is we produce the hydrogen gas, we send it in out of the chamber, and then we combine it through a dissolving chamber that causes the gas to hit saturation. And so when it comes out of our machines, then you have saturated hydrogen gas into water.
I don't know about you guys, but I am stressed. And if you're feeling overwhelmed this holiday season, then I get it. With all the family get togethers, it is just a relentless source of stress. But anyway, there is something that I've got called Stress Guardian, and it's actually made by Bioptimizers, the people who make the magnesium breakthrough, which I love, love, love. But anyway, they are literally made this new product. It has 14 adaptogenic herbs, and it just regulates your stress. I just actually took some right this second, and it's awesome. If you go to stressguardian.com/wasteaway and put in waste away for 10% off your first order, it's stressguardian.com/wasteaway. Go there now.
Okay, so I'm gonna kind of explain to you what I understand it to be,
Sure.
but you can correct me where I'm wrong. So, first of all, our 70% of our immune system comes from the health of our gut, and we
Right.
just can't have a healthy immune system without a healthy gut. We all know that.
Mhm.
But some of the most critical bacteria in our gut are anaerobic, which means they don't need oxygen. But since hydrogen is electron rich, then it's going to improve our gut bacteria. And on top of that, basically, we need hydrogen. Hydrogen's supposed to be in our bodies. So we need to basically get hydrogen into our intestinal tract where we digest food. And the reason why people have so much inflammation in their body is because they have so much oxidative stress, and we want to kind of get rid of that oxidative stress, and adding that hydrogen into the water once we're absorbing that's going to lead to reduced inflammation. Is that
Yes.
kind of
So
how it works,
yeah,
or where did I get that wrong?
well, no, hydrogen will reduce inflammation and oxidative stress. And it's through a process of mitochondrial function with hydroxyl radicals, for example. In the mitochondria of the body, you produce hydroxyl radicals, which is an oxygen radical. And hydrogen will stop that process, and it will cause energy to be produced without having to sugar and carb load, so that you don't have oxygen radicals. So that gets into some deep science, but that's purely what hydrogen does, is it manages oxidation and inflammation. And if we think about hydrogen and oxygen as a gas, oxygen is an oxidizer, hydrogen is a reducer. These two gases in our body, we breathe in oxygen and we want to produce hydrogen in the gut through fermentation. So these are naturally how you would get oxygen, is through breath. You would get hydrogen through forming it in the colon through fermentation. That's how you would have these two forces in the body. And when they're balanced, we call that homeostasis. When they're not balanced, if we have too much oxygen in the system or too much oxidation and not enough reduction, then we end up with oxidative stress, which is when your cells stop functioning properly and we have damage. If we have too much hydrogen, then with too much reduction, which is impossible, but if you had it, you would have problems on the other side. Our issue is when the gut is not functioning, you're not producing hydrogen the way you're supposed to. Oxidation rises until you end up with oxidative stress. Then the body employs inflammation to fix the problem. And then inflammation and oxidative stress combined is where disease comes from. So that's your pathway to disease. And the leading cause of disease is oxidative stress and chronic inflammation. Hydrogen stops both of those things. And that's why you have over 200 disease models that hydrogen is beneficial for, because the cause of those disease is oxidative stress and inflammation. And that's what hydrogen is proven to reduce.
So by drinking the hydrogen water, you're basically feeding the gut bacteria, and you're kind of changing the flora of the gut. And that, whenever you change the flora of the gut, obviously that reduces inflammation. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes, when hydrogen gets into the gut, it changes the terrain and the biome of the gut so that anaerobic microflora can thrive. We have two main types of bacteria in the gut: anaerobic microflora and aerobic bacteria. Really, we should only ever have 1 to 4% of aerobic bacteria, and we should have 96 to 99% should be aerobic or anaerobic, excuse me. So what happens when people have antibiotics or when people have issues in their gut, you end up with more aerobic bacteria than you want, which is going to cause anxiety, depression, sugar, and carb cravings. When you have anaerobic microflora, you're going to want fiber and fatty acids, in other words, naturally occurring foods, and you have a more positive outlook. That's overall an effect of these two bacteria. but we are supposed to have a majority of our bacteria is anaerobic. The problem is if people have pesticides or people have antibiotics or people have heavy metals or people have stress or whatever the cause is, it can deplete the environment of the gut, and therefore the bacteria are not able to thrive. And we end up with an electrical environment that supports aerobic bacteria versus anaerobic. And here comes all the problems. Hydrogen is able to come in there and change that environment to be back to an environment that anaerobic microflora can thrive, create communities, and exist. And once you have anaerobic microflora, then your immune system, all your antioxidant functions, all your wonderful things that should be happening in the gut come back.
So talk about the differences in machines. So like if someone goes on Amazon right now and buys a hydrogen water machine that's, a couple $100, what is the difference between them? How do you know if they're legit or not legit?
Typically, those devices are not at all. And the reason being is because they're just alkaline acid systems being marketed as hydrogen, because everyone's beginning to understand that hydrogen's popular and alkaline water is not helping you. The pH of water doesn't matter. And so these companies that were always selling these alkaline systems with very basic electrolysis systems, they're just now remarketing their products without changing a thing about them. They're remarketing them as a hydrogen. And because people don't know that it's a scam yet, the information is not out there to the public yet, they buy it. And so that's the unfortunate thing. But what's going to happen is, like I said, you're going to have the electrodes getting mineral buildup, and then you're not going to have hydrogen in the water. And you can test that. There's a reagent you can purchase called H2 Blue that one of my friends, Randy Sharp, sells. And you can put a drop in the water. And if there's hydrogen, it goes clear. When there's not, it stays blue. So these are the kind of things that you can do after the fact, but that doesn't save you from spending $200 and probably from a company in China, and you won't get your money back. So that's really the problem. But you want to get a true hydrogen water system, and the way to know that is only purchase a product that is IHSA certified. IHSA stands for International Hydrogen Standards Association. They're out of Japan. Dr. Shigeota formed this organization because there were so many scam products being on the market now that all the studies are showing hydrogen, that unless the product has IHSA certification, which all of our devices do, and we were the first company in the world to have that, to accomplish the certification, these other products on the market will never get the certification because they are not able to. The way their devices work cannot get them that certification. And the reason being is when you have a traditional electrolysis technology, you have to have minerals in water. The test or the standard from the IHSA is you need to be able to use distilled water so that the device is actually creating hydrogen. You're not playing games with normal electrolysis. And so most of the products on the market would never, ever accomplish that standard of getting half a part per million of hydrogen gas dissolved in water using distilled water. Our devices, obviously, every one of the products we sell have accomplished the IHSA certification. But not only did we accomplish half a part per million, but we ended up with a minimum of 1.5 parts per million up to 4.5 parts per million, depending on which device it was. So we go anywhere from 3 to 10 times above their standard that they did. And so, of course, we were the first company to ever accomplish it, and we're still IHSA certified. So that's where you would kind of set your bar, is those people in the actual hydrogen water industry are saying, if it's not IHSA certified, don't buy the product because it's not a hydrogen product. It's a scam product.
Now, I know that you are a doctor. What kind of doctor are you?
I'm an ND.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so how did you get into, I guess, was it just your wife, you seeing everything that happened amazing with your wife is kind of what got you down this path of saying, I want to put all my eggs into the hydrogen water?
Absolutely. So I once my sweetheart was helped, I was like, oh my, there's got to be a lot of other husbands that don't know what to do. And there's got to be a lot of other people in the world that don't know what to do when they're in trouble. Prior to that, my focus was on diabetes. And of course, the hydrogen water helped patients with diabetes as well. It normalized their blood glucose levels in just a few days. And so, now we have over 70 studies on diabetes. But yes, it's my wife and seeing the success of her as well as other individuals with diabetes that really caused me to be passionate about it. And again, that goes back many years ago. Starting in 2005 is when I started with my wife. And within a year or so, she was doing great. Within 6 months, her menstrual cycle was normal. And that was like, whoa, right? She went from being in bed and not able to get out of bed for a week of the month to we didn't even know when she was on her cycle. And so that took, months, but it was amazing because it had been years that she had been suffering through all that. So that is really what caused me to have my passion. And of course, now be, after all of these years and after millions of people having our systems, now it's like everything possible you could imagine that people are better from.
So do you think that hydrogen water will actually repair the terrain of your cut?
Hydrogen gas, yes. And water, we are using water as a delivery vehicle. So we're delivering hydrogen to the body through water. We also have inhalation devices where people can breathe in a cannula, breathe in hydrogen. We also have a hydrogen bath unit where you can lay in a bathtub and have hydrogen being put in that water. So you're absorbing it through your skin for skin issues like collagen and different things. So we have every delivery method available to be able to get hydrogen into the body. But the most effective is through water, through drinking. And it's also the easiest mechanism of delivery is through water. So most of your studies are with water. And then of course, inhalation would be the next, definitely. China loves inhalation. And so that you have a lot of the studies coming out of China now. It's increasing, and we're getting near to where half the studies are coming out of China, and they like inhalation. And so that becomes the process. And so what you got to understand is, as long as you're getting hydrogen in the body, hydrogen's going to do what it does, but we need to get it into the system, whether you do it through water, inhalation, or whatever. The whole reality is that we need to get hydrogen in the system. Our bodies are carbon hydrogen chains. Everything from your stomach acid, HCl, what's the H? It's hydrogen. So if you don't have hydrogen in the body, you can't even produce hydrochloric acid. And we could just go through every neurologic function. We can go through, ghrelin secretions within 3 minutes to 5 minutes of drinking water with hydrogen in it. You end up having ghrelin going to the hippocampus, the hypothalamus, and the brainstem to change cognitive function, motor skills, memory, all these kind of things. So there are tremendous studies on neuroprotective effects of hydrogen on the brain, on the gut, mitochondrial function, metabolic rates, telomeres, nitric oxide. I mean, we could go into every possible topic because hydrogen affects all of those things. Hydrogen stimulates nitric oxide, naturally occurring peptides in the body. There's really no system that hydrogen does not affect.
Did you know that you can get all 4 of the books that I wrote, Waste Away, Fasting to Freedom, One Meal into Tasting, and Freedom from Food? You can buy all 4 books and get the ebook for free. Go right now to chantelrayway.com, or you can go to Amazon. Also, I just wrote a brand new book called How to Delegate Everything But Sex. If you are stressed out and are tired of doing everything on your own, go check out Delegate Everything But Sex. And there's all kinds of freebies on the site. So I have a place here called Restore Cryotherapy, and I see they have like the hyperbaric hydrogen therapy, and they have like the hyperbaric chambers. And
Well,
I guess
hyperbaric is usually oxygen.
it's
Like
oxygen only, right? So
yes,
don't
yes.
they have something where they have ones that does a mixture of both hydrogen and oxygen in a pressurized chamber, or am I just imagining that?
No, you can't do that because you would have an explosion. So
Okay.
hydrogen by itself is not really flammable. Oxygen by itself is fine. It's when you combine the two and you get over 4% hydrogen and there was some sort of spark or static or anything, you have the Hindenburg, right? So hydrogen by itself is fine, oxygen by itself is fine. You mix the two and it becomes a very serious situation. So there are such things. Years ago in the 70s in the United States, hydrogen hyperbaric chambers were used for cancer treatment, but then it's gone. It went away. Oddly, in World War II, hydrogen was used for gunshot wounds. Went away after that. You look in Japan, 1950 to 1965, you had a entire human trial, 15-year human trial in all the hospitals. And they, at the end of that 15-year human trial, the Japanese Ministry of Health and Welfare said that hydrogen water administration cured improper fermentation in the gut. So that was a huge, huge thing that came out of that. And they noted that disease models went away in the hospitals. So unfortunately, hydrogen has been studied for a very long time and had been talked about since 1700s. That's the earliest that I can find, 1798. And that's why Anthony Carlisle discovered water electrolysis in 1800. It was understood that hydrogen was an antioxidant, but we're just now in 2009, 2010, 11, where Nature Medicine published a study showing that hydrogen was a selective antioxidant, that everyone woke up and was like, holy cow, what the heck? So that's really what happened. Is I think we kind of forgot, society forgot about all these wonderful studies and everything that was done on hydrogen. And then in 2009, Shige Ota, Dr. Ota in Japan, published a study with Nature Medicine showing that hydrogen was a selective antioxidant. And what it showed is that hydrogen reacted with the bad radicals, but not the good radicals, like hydroxyl radicals, superoxide, things like this that were cell damaging. Hydrogen reacted with those things, but hydrogen did not react with radicals that had a physiological role or a benefit to the body. So it just boomed from there. And now we have 1,400 studies, hundreds of disease models and no contraindications, no negatives. And so it's amazing when you talk about immune, when you talk about metabolic syndrome, when you talk about Crohn's, when you talk about IBS, when you talk about in general, the gut, neurologic function, blood pressure, you start naming all kinds of disease models, cancer, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, all these things. There are studies on them and huge, amazing studies that had benefits. So
let's talk about, let's switch gears to fasting, because you had said that people have had huge success with drinking hydrogen water, and then maybe they've done a 3-day fast before, but then while they were fasting, instead of doing regular water, they did hydrogen water and made the fast a lot easier for them to do. Talk about that.
Yes. And I have to say, not just hydrogen water, but echo water, because there's hydrogen in echo water. You don't know if there's hydrogen in other waters that are claiming to be hydrogen water. So be very careful. There's a very different outcome if you're water fasting. Most people that I have talked to have a difficult time doing a water fast for 3 to 5 days. It is tough for some people. And I would say females on your menstrual cycle should not be fasting in the first place. And there are some blood types, there are some individuals who are have methylation issues or other things that shouldn't be fasting either. So you got to really understand your body, and you got to understand your situation. Even as a female on a menstrual cycle, not the good time to do fasting, but fasting is wonderful, and I do it often. But fasting is great to help with all kinds of benefits to the body. So whether it's T cells, whether it's, all kinds of things that we won't go into now, but tremendous things that get helped in the body. The reason why there will be a difference is when you just have water, you may find yourself hungry, and you may find a water fast difficult. When you have hydrogen gas dissolved in the water, that hydrogen gas is going to signal or give direction to systems in your body to function like you had minerals, like you had food content, because hydrogen will cause things to happen. And so what we end up hearing, and what I've experienced myself, is when you're water fasting, you're not necessarily hungry. And we've had some people, and I'm not saying this is a guarantee for anybody, I'm not making a guarantee. I'm just saying a lot of people say that they fast and it is so much easier to water fast when using echo water versus using other types of water that are just water. And so I would just say, try it. I don't know if you know Mindy Pels, Dr. Pels.
Yeah, she's been
So
on a couple times on our podcast.
Yeah, dear friend, she uses echo water. That changed her fasting. Her water fasting changed significantly when she did. Ed Group, who promotes water fasting, he has our ecosystem for, I don't know, 8 years now. So these people that are doing water fasting and promoting water fasting, they do have our hydrogen water system, the Echo branded hydrogen water, and so they can see serious differences. And Mindy Pels, Dr. Pels, came and said it was a life changer for me when I added Echo water to my water fasting. It was a game changer. And so I would just tell you, it's going to be a difference. Now, the greatest person that, or the longest fast that is 21 days so far. There's a chiropractor that went 21 days, lost 35 pounds, and kept it off. He kept it off. But he said, I wasn't hungry. I still wasn't hungry after 21 days. I just had to go to an event that he was going to. But eventually, you might get hungry. Isn't like you can live on water for the rest of your life. The hydrogen will help tremendously, but at some point, you're going to need nutrition and you're going to need some things. But you can go and utilize reserves for quite a long time, because the hydrogen will be modulating pathways and different things.
Guys, I just want to interrupt for just a second, and I want you to hear Paul Saladino talk about why liver is so important. And if you don't like liver, we have another option for you.
Your ancestors were eating liver. And the reason that this sort of wisdom has been passed down is because liver is very nutritious. It's basically nature's multivitamin. If you look at the nutrients in meat, they're great. You've got zinc, you got B6, you got B12, you got some K2. But if you look at liver, it really complements what's in muscle meat. And there are many unique nutrients found in organs, specifically liver as a powerhouse of these, that are difficult to obtain outside of liver. Like meat and organs are like peanut butter and jelly. They just go together. They're supposed to be eaten together. The easiest way to eat liver is just to do it raw. If you don't want to eat liver raw, you can cook it. But the reason that I like to do it raw is because there are unique nutrients in liver that are probably somewhat degraded when you cook the liver.
This really is like the most nutrient-rich supplements that you can find, and they are amazing. I have tried them. I absolutely love them. So just go to heartandsoil.co, use the coupon code, and save you some money there.
Let's switch gears and talk about EMF, because I feel like different people are trying different things. They're feeling, I had a friend say, like, if she holds her cell phone for more than a couple minutes, she can definitely feel kind of that EMF. And, different people are like, well, is it enough to just put my phone on airplane mode? Or, do I turn off the Wi-Fi in my house at night, where I just say, okay, at night, I'm going to turn it off? What is your opinion? I want you to kind of talk about how much damage is EMF doing And what is the best things for you to do to protect yourself?
So hydrogen is anti-radiation. NASA used hydrogen water for the astronauts in space because of the fact that it helped with cosmic radiation and radiation in general. There are studies showing that hydrogen is radiation protective. And I would say to people, turning off your Wi-Fi doesn't do a thing for your neighbor's Wi-Fi. And turning off your cell phone doesn't do a thing for the cellular signal that's being broadcast from the tower. So it's really,
But wouldn't you say it's better? Like it's still good to do. Like if you can turn off your phone or.
I think less could be better. I'm just being transparent. I don't ever
Yeah.
turn my Wi-Fi off. I don't ever turn my phone off. And I don't have any issues. But what I believe, this is my personal opinion, if we get your gut to functioning properly, you will not be as susceptible to frequencies coming into your body. I can tell you that. Hydrogen can help with that, but if we get your body bolstered to the point where your gut is functioning properly. My wife, for example, used to go into department stores that had fluorescent lights, and within 10 minutes, she was ready to take a nap. It would wipe her out. Now she can go in there and there's no problems. So the other day I was at an event. I was at Hack Your Health. I was speaking at Hack Your Health, which used to be called KetoCon. And there was a gentleman there selling EMF protection products. And I knew him, he knew me. And he said, "Hey, how are you doing? I haven't seen you in a while." And he goes, "What cell phone do you have?" And I said, "I have the iPhone 15 Pro." Right? That's what the phone.
I have that too.
Yeah, I love it. And he said, "Well, you want me to show you what it's doing to you?" And I said, "Sure, show me what it's doing to me." Right? And so he says, "Take your phone and hold it on your chest and put your arm out, and I'm going to muscle test you." And my arm was solid. He couldn't put my arm down. And he goes, "Huh, that's weird. What did you do to your phone?" And I said, "Nothing. I didn't do a thing to my phone." He goes, "Weird." It goes, "Okay, I know what my phone does. Let me have you do that with my phone." So I took his phone, put it on solid. And he goes, "Holy cow. It's not affecting you like it affects everyone else. What did you do? What are you doing?" And I said, "I work on me. I don't work on a phone. I work on me. I work on my energy. I work on my body and bolster my body so that it has the ability to combat anything that's coming." And he goes, "Holy cow. I have never seen anyone solid and strong when I put a phone next to them and all this stuff." And I said, "Well, I've been working on that for a while." But I would tell you, there are people that are susceptible. There are people that are very susceptible to electromagnetic fields. Okay. And there are some people that it's debilitating. There are some people that can't leave their home. There are some people that can't even turn on a fridge, because you have to understand EMFs are coming off every motor in your house, whether it's air conditioning, it's a fridge, it's whatever. Any motor is producing EMFs. A blender, a Vitamix, it may not reach you. The field may not reach you because of the distance EMFs travel from the source is different with different devices. But I would simply say that we've seen people that have too much copper in their system. We've seen people with heavy metals that are affected more by EMFs. We've seen all kinds of things. As I have studied over the last 8 years, I did study it and became somewhat of an expert on that. I would tell you, if you focus on your gut and you focus on your own system to get your gut fixed, the combination of hydrogen gas being radioprotective and getting your immune function and getting your system up to par, you'll be less susceptible. But there are some devices out there that I've heard people say really helps them and protects them. It just depends on which company and what technology they have. Some of them are just producing a field that, combats the EMF field. There are products out there that say that that they changed the radiation. I don't know that I buy that or agree with that, but I always like to bolster your own system and have your body be able to protect itself.
Mm. So let's talk about some other things that you've done, like with your analogy that you talked about with that phone. Like, so besides hydrogen water, what is kind of a day in the life of Dr. Paul, of like some things that you've done, whether it's like your food and your exercise and some little hacks that Dr. Paul has done to get your health in the most optimal place that you can be?
Well, thank you for that. I'm not as avid as many people. Some people are extremely like driven to do, I've got to have this program. I eat a very varied diet, but it is clean. Most of the food that I have is organic, non-GMO. And so I do believe that it is important not to bring pesticides into our system and not to bring unnecessary contaminants into our body. I also have in my home a sauna room, I have a jacuzzi, I have a steam room, I have a gym, a basketball court. And so I do get exercise. I'm not crazy about it, but I do like to shoot baskets. I do like to exercise and work out some so that your body stays toned. I do believe that I enjoy sweating. I live in Utah, and so it's a drier climate. And so it's nice to go in a steam room. It's nice to go into a sauna and sweat because that's a wonderful, healthy thing to do. I think you're getting your heart rate up and getting your your heart rate, your breath, all those things up is really, really important. I'm not a workout for an hour or two a day and build my muscles to look like He-Man or whatever. But I think tone is critical. I think we can overdo it on exercise, but I think appropriate exercise for at least a half an hour a day is excellent. My Apple Watch tells me to when it's time to stand up and whatever, so I do kind of follow that. But I would say the thing that I work on the most is love without judgment, forgiveness of other people for whatever reason, whatever they do to you. And that's hard. And I know I'm saying this like it's just flying out of my mouth, but becoming good at forgiveness and not wanting to hold claim on another person, I think is critical for health. I think that it frees us. And if we can look at other people and maybe what they're doing, we don't necessarily say, oh, I would do that, right? Maybe we go, I wouldn't do that, but I can love them. I can love them. I can forgive them. And maybe we don't go around people anymore that continue to want to harm us, but we can forgive others. And that cleans us. That causes us to not have complications where we are dealing with conflict internally. I think when we start to have hatred or want to have vengeance or want to harm another person, it can harm us. And so you just want to have a clean thought process where you are not holding claim. So I've worked hard on being able to forgive others without concern of how it affects me. I try to have love for individuals regardless of what they do or say. And I really work to have a pretty clean diet. It's not all the time. I do travel sometimes and it gets difficult. But when I'm here at home or when I'm in my area, we choose clean food sources and the drink that we have in Utah is a pretty clean state. And so it's good. I do have air purification in my home as well. And my marriage is extremely healthy and good. I've been married 30 years, in love with my wife, and she's in love with me. We're best friends. So I feel like this is how you keep a healthy biome in your gut. Years ago, I did a thesis on hydrogen and how hydrogen helped people when I was becoming an ND. And so I decided, instead of talking about how to live a long time, I wanted to study 4,000 centenarians that are in the world And what I found is that there was only one thing that was the same, or four things that were the same, but one particular that mattered to me, and that was their gut bacteria. Every one of these individuals that were centenarians that were living past 100, their gut bacteria was proper and their terrain of their gut was good. And that was the only real thing. I mean, their diets were not the same. They didn't live in the same place. They didn't believe in the same God. They weren't the same color skin. They didn't wear the same clothes. Some people said you got to drink wine every day. Some people said you got to have ice cream every day. Some people said whatever. And some people smoked. And so the reality was the only thing that I could find is the four things that all of them did is they did believe in a higher power of some kind. And they acknowledged that there was a higher power beyond themselves. They went outside daily, whether it's to work in the garden or just walk around or whatever. They went outside. They had friendships with people. Whether it's going to get, some special dessert at the cafe or it's just to spend time talking with another person, they did have friendships. And the fourth was they had a biome. Their terrain was good. And so the rest was like literally every possible diet, every religion, every this, every that. And so I just believe work on forgiveness, work on loving others and with void of judgment, and then try to eat clean food and try to have your system be strong. I, of course, have been drinking hydrogen water for 20 years now. And so my system's pretty strong and, don't have all these issues. I don't have any disease model. I'm not on any medications, right? I'm doing I'll be 52 in August. And so I just, do well, enjoy life. And I want everyone else to have that same thing. That's really my goal.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. This was amazing. Tell listeners where they can find you and where they can follow you.
So our website is just echowater.com, ECHO, and then water.com. We do have an Instagram, Facebook page. I do too, Dr. Paul Barattiero. If you want to find me, I will tell you, I don't do a lot on social media. I do very little on social media, but my team and the company does. And so you can interact with us. And we have a lot of celebrities that use our water, from high-end athletes to, everyone, team sport, NFL teams, baseball teams, all this kind of stuff. So I would just very strongly encourage people to try the Echo Go Plus. That's really our sport bottle that would be an inexpensive way to get started on your journey to hydrogen. And once you feel the benefits, then you can get other devices if you want to have more production of water. But it's an honor to be with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Paul. And you guys stay tuned. We've got another episode coming up in just a few. Bye-bye for now.